Hello and welcome to the Garden of the Black Roses. This is the next chapter in my Adventures of the Iron Wolves, Book 1, Alpha. If you can hear noise in the background, it's just Sims 3, it's playing. But yeah, hopefully it's not going to make too much noise. Unlike the previous recording where a full moon happened. I fast forwarded through the full moon, so hopefully another full moon's not going to pop up while I'm recording. Anyway, so chapter 11, Race to the Rescue. Anima awoke the next day to the sensation of light fingers against her forehead and cheek. "You're still here?" she asked, not opening her eyes. The hand stopped, moving to her hand and holding it tightly. "I have nothing else to do but wait for you to come and rescue me," Stykes replied wryly. "Unless I want to sit in a cell and stare at nothing, I think I'm better off staying with you." "You have no idea what they could be doing to your body," Anima cried, sitting upright to stare at him worriedly. They could find a way to control you." "By using whose blood?" he asked calmly, amused that he was being the emotionless one between them. "Shiro's blood no longer has power. Those with collars made from his blood have no power. The most they can do is beat me and keep me chained in that cell." "But they can kill you if they really wanted to," Anima said, not really wanting to think on that possibility. "I'll arrange everything for you." She hopped off the bed and straightened her skirt with a few sharp tugs before opening the door to head off down the hall. It took her a while before she realized she could see properly again. Pretending the return of her sight wasn't news to her, she asked, "Do you know where everyone is?" "Hawkeye, Dusk, and Blade are in the assassin's den. As for the rest, I have no idea," Stykes replied, gliding after her like a ghost. What do you have in mind?" "I'm gonna disguise them as my court and visit Akira in the attempt to create an alliance for Lunarias with them," Anima replied, clearly showing that she had a plan in mind already. "Hawkeye, Dusk, Rue, and Blade can be my guardsmen, and Aruna as my advisor." She paused and closed her eyes. "Miyako will be another guardsman, I guess, and Foxwing as my maid." I wasn't expecting my mobile to make noise. She started walking again and down the spiral steps to the ground floor to the assassin's den. Anima slapped Rue's arm warningly. "Hide your wings! I want you all to look like humans, not elves or angels." She stood before all of them wearing a soft periwinkle blue gown with white gloves and white slippers. Her chestnut mare stepped daintily to her side and offered her a dignified bow. Anima mounted up onto the saddle with ease, the mare barely moving to support her master while she mounted. "Let's go." Aruna and Foxwing, on black spotted geldings, rode on Anima's left, and Miyako walked on her right. Rue, Dusk, Hawkeye, and Blade alternated between guarding, scouting ahead, around, and behind the girls. Veritas flew overhead, keeping an eye on everyone's status to feed back to Stykes. Unseen to all but Anima, Stykes floated along on her left between her and Aruna. Anima eyed the females around her before murmuring quietly, "It's going to take us about 4 days' hard ride to get to you." He floated closer to sit on her mare's rump. As much as I want to tell you to go back, you being here tells me you're still alive, at least. They haven't touched my body, Styx said quietly. It took a lot of restraint for Anima not to stare at him. She knew that tone, and deeply wished she could fly. They think I'm still unconscious. They haven't brought a mage down yet to assess me. Have you tried using your power at all? She asked, realizing Aruna was watching her. You may be captured, but they haven't bound your power properly. They assume you're an elven sword mage, so your bindings are against that, not against your wings. She turned to Aruna and said softly, in ancient Elvish, I can see Styx's ethereal self, so it's easier to talk to him. Aruna nodded and moved to talk to Miyako, distracting her from Anima's seemingly insane monologue. Rosiel granted you the ability to speak the language of power, Styx mused, glancing at Aruna, then back to Anima. You can communicate to our mages secretly now. The knowledge will extend to you as well when you seal our marriage, Anima replied without blushing. Rosiel wanted it that way. I haven't really asked her why, although she doesn't answer me anyway. When I try to talk to her. My duel with Shiro was the first time she came out. Whatever the reason is, you made the same choice. He wrapped his arms around her waist. I don't have your memories yet. Anima laughed at this, causing Styx to add angrily, Why are you being so secretive? You deliberately withheld your memories from me. Because you're not in a position to receive them, she replied with a sigh. If you learnt what was in my mind, you would be kicking yourself over being locked in a cell instead of with me. With your memories, I was able to feel everything, as you did. And I had time to properly do that. You don't. She trailed off and looked up. Styx looked up as well, hearing the same noise. Wyverns ahead, Veritas warned, swooping down and landing on the tip of Anima's saddle. They're in a bloodthirsty mood. You're going to need Aruna and Miyako to get past them to Virago City. Anima turned her head to look at Aruna and Miyako, her blue eyes catching theirs easily. Veritas tells me there are wyverns ahead, and they are in a foul mood. Aruna nodded, and the two moved in front of her. Foxwing moved closer to Anima, her bow drawn taut. She was to be the one designated to keep those who came close to Anima away. Can I have my rapier just in case? Anima asked, feeling very vulnerable and naked without a weapon. Aruna shook her head. You're supposed to be a royal princess. You leave the fighting to us, and not mess your elegant dress. She sighed, then added, For your own image, I know you would prefer to fight, but I cannot allow it. Anima looked away, pretending she didn't hear her. Aruna sighed and turned to Miyako, who nodded. You can have a bow and a small quiver of barbed arrows. Better than nothing, Anima replied, looking back and taking the bow and quiver Miyako held in her hands. Her fingers pulled the bowstring taut before letting it snap back into place. Though I do prefer my rapier. Styx, after flowing back to his body, opened his physical eyes slowly. A man in the finest silk clothes stood before him. You're awake now. Good. I'm sure you'll be the perfect bargaining chip for the Princess of Lunarias. I'll pawn you off as a tamed mage. I wonder what I'll get in return. Styx waited before replying in rough speech, disguising his nobility. I heard the princess fancies elves and pays highly for them. She knows to like keeping healers as well. If you throw me in with a healer, you'll probably get a huge amount of gold for your treasury. The man punched him, and Styx licked the blood from his lip before adding, I was born in Lunarias, my lord, so I know the princess and her absurdities better than your personal spies. So what do you believe she'll bring for me as a bargaining chip for an alliance with the Lunarias? He asked with a smile, making it clear he was testing Styx. Whatever it is, it would have to be extremely valuable for me to want to part with a healer. Wyvern teeth, Styx replied knowingly. Fresh wyvern teeth. The man gasped and stared at Styx. Wyverns are in abundance in Lunarias, and so the archers of Lunarias are always prized as best because their arrows tear through everything. Styx pretended to look thoughtful before adding, I think she'll probably bring you at least enough for 1 quiver of arrows. 3, if you carve them carefully and properly. Wyvern teeth. The man stepped out of the cell and called to the guards. Styx strained his ears to listen to the conversation through the magical barrier. Prepare this mage and send him to the holding room next to the Hall of Kings. Make sure he is presentable, but still bound. Also, place Chie there. She's my weakest healer, and best to use in a trade with the chit from Lunarias. Styx relaxed against the wall and sent his ethereal self to Anima. Wyvern's dead? He asked her quietly, before realizing her aura showed her on high alert. Ask Dusk and Hawkeye to harvest their teeth. King Akira is willing to trade me and Chie for wyvern teeth. I hope you're ready to reap the consequences of that, Anima replied, not caring if Foxwing stared at her strangely or not. Wyvern teeth in King Akira's hands spelled trouble. He doesn't have people who know how to carve them, Styx replied, pulling her roughly away from a wyvern that had come too close while she was distracted by him. It'll take him through half before they work out how. Even then, he'll probably be able to make at least 1 quiver, if he's lucky. He's assuming it takes normal methods to carve the teeth. Something pulled his physical body hard. I'll be back again to see you. Remember, collect the teeth. Anima awoke to the sounds of popping and low growls. What on earth is going on? She rubbed her eyes and squinted through the darkness, aided poorly by firelight, at Aruna, Miyako, and Foxwing. Cleaning teeth, Foxwing replied, tossing one to Anima. You said Styx wanted us to collect the wyvern teeth, yes? Anima nodded and turned the newly cleaned tooth over in her hands. We're making them clean and presentable. Right then, Anima yawned, and laid back down, the tooth nestled in her left hand. Wake me in the morning. Night then, milady, Miyako said, scrubbing a tooth hard enough to break enamel if it was a human tooth she held. Styx groaned. Someone was pulling his clothes. He tried to lift a hand and swat the person away. His wrists were still bound. His body grew cold, and he snapped his eyes open. The guards were roughly trying to pull his clothes off. Elf mages' power is not only in their swords and bodies, but also in their clothes, he said weakly, and yelped when they sat him down hard onto the ground. If you unbind me, I can clean my own clothes. The guards laughed at him. Styx pretended to play embarrassed prisoner. Then you need to wash the blood out by hand while it's on me. Or... He paused, knowing the guards wanted an alternative. Find a mage that can use transference. It's rare, so I doubt you'll find one. Normally it's an advanced skill healer mages have. The guards conferred amongst themselves quietly before one set off at a run. Anima awoke, not realizing she was already in her saddle. Foxwing steadied her and laughed. Hawkeye wanted an early start, but you were so tired that he just picked you up and planted you on your saddle while you slept. Anima's eyes fell to a pouch at Foxwing's waist. These are the wyvern teeth, Foxwing said, touching the pouch. I took some and made arrows from them. There were more teeth than King Akira deserved. Where are we? Anima asked, looking around. If I'm not mistaken, we aren't in Lunarias anymore. She sat herself up properly, taking her weight off Foxwing. Have we passed the border already? We're in Bunan now, Foxwing confirmed, pulling out her bow. We will reach Inoptia City by nightfall. Rule has gone ahead to give Queen Rain warning. He had a feeling that she would be offended if we entered the city and not told her that we were there. Anima grimaced and replied in forced, even tones. Rain. She heard a faint cry and pulled her mare to a halt. What was that? Foxwing held her bow taut, casting a sharp eye around her surroundings. There's nothing out there, Foxwing answered in hushed tones. The cry grew louder now, causing Aruna and Miyako to come closer to Anima. The three formed a rough triangle around her. I wonder where it's coming from. Anima leapt down from her saddle and knelt. The cry was louder with her head near the ground. She placed her hands on either side of the brown dirt and felt it move under her hands. She smiled and carefully pulled until she unearthed a small furball. What are you doing out here hiding in the dirt? Anima asked, pulling a thick clump of dirt that stuck its ears together. Foxwing took the furball from Anima and placed it in one of her empty saddlebags with the lid open. The furball unwrapped itself, shedding flakes of dirt and peeking out at Anima, its pointed ears flicking around. It's a kitten, Aruna said with a smile. Poor thing. Must have been trapped here during the storm last night. She waited while Anima got back up into her saddle. What do you want to do with it? I'll keep it for now, she said, looking at the kitten. It mewed at her happily, giving Anima the impression that it knew human speech. We better get a move on if we were to get to Inoptia City by nightfall. She indicated with her head towards the setting sun. Anima cringed internally as Queen Rain gave her a kiss on both cheeks. Well met, cousin, Anima said formally, keeping her dislike for the lady out of her voice. I'm surprised you are so well prepared for us. An inn in the city would have been enough. Not for my dear cousin, Rain exclaimed, shocked at the thought. No, you must stay here a few days. I'm afraid I can only stay here tonight, Anima replied, pulling away from Rain. I'm expected in Figura City tomorrow to meet with King Akira. It was Rain's turn to cringe. I need him as an ally if Lunarias isn't going to turn into a land battle. Rain nodded regally. I'm sorry to hear about your father. She swept her hand to the stairs before guiding Anima up them. Then rest comfortably tonight before setting out in the morning. Anima thanked Rain and disappeared into her room. Why don't you like Rain? Anima jumped like a startled deer and turned to look at Styx. She's really nice to you, yet you always seem to be repulsed by her. Anima sat on the bed and began to change her clothes without saying anything to him. You angry I startled you? For all she is nice, Anima said quietly but formally, she is the most vilest person I know. She doesn't command respect from her inferiors, she demands it. She beheaded a fair number of them for voicing their own opinions. She's nice to me because I defeated her once when we were kids. I told her exactly what I thought of her, and she tried to kill me with her sword for saying it. I managed to knock her out with the dagger Father told me to carry for emergencies, and she's been scared that I will be the one to kill her if she ever tried that again. She placed her clothes on the chair and picked up a white cotton shift. Styx, unable to keep his eyes off her naked body, replied, So basically your relationship with her isn't familial, but more love-hate? Anima pulled on the shift before nodding. She could tell he enjoyed the sight of her just then. You know, when we're officially married, I'm going to make sure you sleep naked. You try that, Anima said without smiling, and you'll find I'm not much of a bed warmer. She turned to face him, hands on hips. We're already officially married, at least in the eyes of the gods. We haven't completed the ceremony, but the main part of the ritual has been done. What I believe you mean is that when we announce it to everyone, so official to the public. Right. He perched onto the end of the bed with a smile on his face. Anyway, when you get here, King Akira will demand you to come to the hall at once. He basically wants to embarrass you, so be prepared for a grating. He thinks you're too young to be the crown princess of Lunarias. He believes that you should have someone who is older and wiser than you. Namely him. You think he'll propose that I marry him to bind an alliance? Anima asked, angry, but also a little afraid of what she was hearing. Because our rings can't be removed by anyone in any way, shape, or form. He probably will, Styx replied ruefully. But I have a plan. And that's it for that chapter. I was not expecting Sims 3 to start ringing, like her phone to start ringing. So I had to pause it. But yeah. As always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Give me ideas, people. Thoughts, ideas, anything. There's like over 1,000 of you now, and I need like some interaction, like some comments, please. I can't believe I'm begging for comments. Anyway, I will see you in the next one. And as always, let your imagination run wild. Bye for now.